Premise. In Star Wars The Phantom Menace, we can track when Padme is stepping into her role as the Queen of Naboo and when it's actually her decoy. Okay, so I'm on the Star Wars kick. I'm going back and watching all of the trilogies in story order, starting with the prequels. One of my favorite parts of the first prequel movie, The Phantom Menace, is when Padme reveals that she, in fact, is the Queen of Naboo and had been using a decoy for her protection. She then goes on to garner the respect of Boss Nass and the other Gungans so they can band together to defend their home planet from the Trade Federation. It's heartwarming, it's surprising, it's good character development, but it always left me wondering, just how did Padme pull this stunt off? I mean, she couldn't have been shirking her duties pretending to be a handmaiden and leaving her decoy to do all of the work the whole time, right? There must have been times when she reprised her role so she could do her important queen work, and then other times where she falls back to use her decoy as a shield, like what we see in the films. Following this train of logic, I realized something. We can actually make a pretty good guess as to when Padme is stepping in as the Queen of Naboo and when her decoy is standing in for her. Before we start, we have to lay down some assumptions. First, we have to assume that Padme and her decoy look close enough to be interchangeable. Obviously, they both wear tons of makeup and extravagant clothing when playing the queen role, so as to look identical, but still, if they were too different, say one was much shorter than the other or of a different race or species, it would be too easy to tell them apart, making the decoy gambit useless. By assuming this, we open up the possibility that her decoy can go back to being one of her handmaidens, perhaps even using the name quote-unquote Padme, when she isn't pretending to be the queen without anyone else noticing. Second, we have to assume that there are events and circumstances in which Padme would absolutely have to be present for. In other words, activities that she wouldn't want or be allowed to use a decoy for. This allows us to propose that she switches out with her decoy during the film until the climactic reveal. Otherwise, we could just argue that she never swaps out, making this whole exercise pointless. It also just makes sense. As the queen, Padme has obligations to fill and important decisions to make, and she can't just leave that to one of her servants. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get to it. Using the plot clues and some logic, we can go through each scene that the Queen of Naboo, meaning the figure the other characters assume she is, not just Padme, appears in to determine whether it's actually Padme or her decoy in disguise. Number 1. Video call with the Trade Federation. Since this was official business with another government entity, we can probably assume that Padme took on this duty herself. Number 2. Naboo Council meeting with hologram Palpatine. The Queen is talking politics and trying to decide what to do about the Trade Federation blockade with her council. Again, this is official business, meaning that Padme takes this on herself. Notice that we do not see any of her handmaidens with her. Her only servant present is Captain Panaka, one of her security guards. Number 3. Watching the invasion of Theed. This is most likely Padme, who has just come from a council meeting in which they make clear that she is in danger. She is literally watching the Trade Federation droid army take over Theed, Naboo's capital city, and can no longer deny the threat to her life. Thus, between this scene and the next, she swaps places with her decoy. Number 4. Trade Federation capture and Jedi rescue. Again, with the Trade Federation moving in to capture Theed, Padme realizes that she is in danger. She switches places with her decoy, and when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan come to the rescue, we can see that she has taken up a position as one of the Queen's handmaidens. Number 5. Traveling to Tatooine. This one is thankfully straightforward. Padme is in the Queen's entourage. In fact, she's the one ordered to clean up R2-D2 as a thank you to the droid's excellent performance. Number 6. Incoming transmission. Obviously, this queen is the decoy since Padme is out in Mos Espa with Qui-Gon and the others. Number 7. Landing on Coruscant. The decoy continues pretending to be the queen even after the group lands on Coruscant. We know this because Padme is still in the entourage. Number 8. Prepping with Palpatine. Now safe on Coruscant, Padme resumes her position as queen. Notice that she's changed outfits too, and that Senator Palpatine starts trying to convince her that they need to elect a new chancellor. Notice too that handmaiden Padme is nowhere to be found. Number 9. Anakin says goodbye. Despite the queen being surrounded by her staff, Padme is not among them. The queen says that she's sent Padme on an errand, but this is just a cover for the fact that Padme, having just returned from a Senate hearing, is still in her queen role. She can't let down her guard because that would give away the ruse. Also, consider this. Why would the decoy send Padme, the true queen, on an errand, especially with all the other servants hanging around? Number 10. Vote of no confidence. This is official political business, making it more than likely that Padme is acting in full queen role. Also, she is acting on Palpatine's words from earlier and calls for a vote of no confidence so that the Senate can vote for a new chancellor. 11. A chat with Jar Jar, Palpatine's nomination, and the return to Naboo. This one is harder to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt, but given the weight of the scene and the fact that it calls back to Padme looking out over Theed as the droid army marches in, we can assume that this is really Padme too. Also, since she is alone except for Jar Jar, it follows the pattern of Padme returning to her queenly duties without her handmaidens around. Further, soon after Panaka announces Palpatine's nomination for Chancellor, the Queen decides to return to Naboo to take on the Trade Federation. This doesn't seem like a spontaneous decision that a puppet would be able to make. Number 12. Return trip to Naboo. Once again, the Naboo squad makes its way home, accompanied by the Jedi and Anakin. We see that Padme is hanging out behind the Queen, meaning the one in regalia is actually the decoy. Number 13. Meet with Boss Nass. And finally, we have the big reveal. As Padme herself explains, her decoy was pretending to be the Queen for her protection. As a sign of respect, however, she spills the truth and begs for Boss Nass and the Gungans to help. From here on, Padme is treated as the rightful Queen of Naboo. As we can see, despite having a decoy, Padme actually fulfills her role as Queen of Naboo for a majority of the movie, opting to be replaced by a decoy only when things are really dangerous. In fact, she tends to opt for a decoy usually while in transit. This is a trait we see her maintain in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. At the beginning of the film, Padme, now a senator for the Naboo system, pretends to be a security officer while her decoy disembarks from the ship. This turns out to save her life, as a bomb meant for her takes out the decoy and her entourage instead. Ironically, later in the movie, she is persuaded to use Jedi protection and go into hiding to protect herself. The brilliance of this plot device is that it seems simple, if even slapped together, just to get a reaction out of the audience. But looking back at this film with a more analytical lens, we can see that it actually foreshadows Padme's ruse. If we look back at the times that Padme must have been playing the Queen, we see that there are few servants around her, not even someone claiming to be Padme to help sell the ruse. From there, we can specify a hard and fast rule. Whenever the Queen appears on screen with Padme nowhere to be found, we know that they are one and the same. Using that logic, the scene in which Anakin is looking around for Padme to say goodbye as he prepares to leave for the Jedi Temple is a lot more poignant. To keep up appearances, the Queen lies and says that Padme is off somewhere and she'll pass along his regards. In reality, it's Padme talking to her new friend, unable to convey her feelings or even say goodbye to him properly to keep up appearances. Even looking at this from a storytelling perspective makes sense. There are two possibilities. For a long time, I had always gone with the first, that Padme really was nowhere to be found in that scene, and the Queen, who is being played by the decoy, is saying goodbye to Anakin on her behalf. However, this doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't add any tone or information to the story. All it does is make it slightly sad that Anakin couldn't say goodbye to Padme directly, making him seem to feel more lonely, I guess, only for him to end up on a ship heading back to Naboo in a few scenes anyway. The other possibility is that, like we said, Padme really is playing the Queen in that scene, but can't say so because it would destroy her ruse. Reading Anakin's goodbye scene that way adds depth in the form of character and relationship development. Padme can't express how she truly feels because of the role she's playing and her sense of obligation. This is a theme we'll see crop up again in Episode 2 for much higher stakes. It's also the clue the film is giving us to the true identity of the Queen. After all, why would Padme randomly be missing from the Queen's entourage? Where could the young teenager have gone on a foreign planet by herself? What power could the decoy have to send Padme off on an errand, as she insinuates? The only explanation is that Padme hadn't really gone anywhere. P.S. Fun fact, Keira Knightley was cast as Sabe, Padme's Queen stand-in, because of her close resemblance to Natalie Portman. Apparently, on set, even their mothers had trouble telling them apart, so maybe our initial assumption about the decoy's resemblance to Padme was truer than we thought. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can be the first to know when a new video is posted. And as always, stay lit.